Welcome back to the Soul Synergy Network podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Irma Elisheva Diaz, and today we are talking about what some call the new face of grief. How loss has changed in our post-pandemic world and what the soul needs now in the season of collective and personal transition. The truth is, people today are grieving differently than they were even 5 years ago. Grief now carries added layers, forced delays, ambiguity, and a weight that feels heavier, more complex, and harder to name. Today, we're going to explore why grief feels different now, how to recognize the forms of grief showing up in your life or the lives of others and what you see, and most importantly, how to tend to your soul in the middle of all of it. So let's talk about how grief has changed. What no one has prepared us for. We live in a world that has shifted, not slightly, but fundamentally. Before the pandemic, grief was more linear, more visible, more ritualized. A death occurred and we gathered, we mourned, we referenced the 5 stages of grief as something to guide us forward. But during the pandemic, loss happened in isolation. People died without touch, without family at the bedside, without goodbyes. Funerals were postponed. Rituals were disrupted. And mourning happened in fragments, not fully, not collectively, not held. During that time, while serving as mental health liaison for Congresswoman Grace Napolitano, I had a front row seat to what this did to families, to first responders, and entire communities. And now, a year later, as I counsel grieving families, I see clearly those disruptions did not disappear. Their impact followed us. This is why grief today often looks like delayed grief. It looks like stacked or compounded grief, ambiguous grief, chronic grief, collective grief, and grief that really doesn't have a language to it. People aren't only grieving loved ones, they're grieving time, identity, health, security, and even faith. And for many, the version of themselves they lost along the way. I want to talk with you about this delayed grief. It's kind of like when the heart catches up later. Delayed grief is grief that arrives long after the loss has occurred. During the pandemic, for example, many people went into survival mode. They managed crises. They handled logistics. They held everyone else together. There was no space to feel. So now, when life slows down, when the world expects us to be back to normal, grief rises, suddenly, unexpectedly. You may notice random waves of sadness or unexplained tears, heaviness you can't name, anxiety or fatigue that doesn't make sense. Here's something important to consider. Perhaps your soul is finally exhaling. After years of holding its breath, delayed grief means that your heart is catching up to what life forced you to bypass. Your emotions are thawing after a long freeze. Your body finally feels safe enough to feel. If this is happening to you, you're not going backward. You're healing. So let it happen. And along with delayed grief is usually what is known as stacked grief. Multiple losses at a time. When loss comes in waves over the losses. It's called compounded or layered grief. Stacked grief occurs when multiple losses pile on top of one another before you have time to recover from the first one. And for many people, this has been the dominant grief experience of the last several years. Losses didn't come one at a time. They came like waves. Could have been a death, then another, then news of more deaths, a job loss, a health change, fractured family relationships, financial strain, loss of identity or direction. Grief stacked upon grief until people could no longer tell which loss they were crying for. I saw this firsthand, and I see it today. They were crying for all the griefs. When I facilitate grief support groups now, the majority of participants are navigating multiple losses. Far more than I ever saw before. It stacks up. Emotions intensify. The overwhelm comes faster. Small triggers feel enormous. Resilience feels fragile. And energy drains quickly. Most people misunderstand stacked grief. They think, I'm not coping well. But the truth is this, no one is meant to carry 5 or 10 losses at the same time. In fact, I know someone that's very close to me that had 8 losses in the last few years. I think another one was just added recently. That's overwhelming. The human soul grieves best in cycles, not in storms. Those are storms. If you're experiencing this stacked grief, hear this very, very clearly. Your reaction's not wrong. Your reaction makes sense. And do not allow anyone to make you feel like you're losing it. There are gentle ways to navigate stacked grief. Not by pushing through it, but by moving with it. Let me share what I mean. Number 1, name each loss separately. You see, when grief blends together, the soul becomes overwhelmed. The mind becomes overwhelmed. The heart becomes overwhelmed. Take time to name each loss, a person, a role, a job, your health, your sense of safety. Naming creates space, and space creates breath. It is in that space that relief can come. Number 2, grieve in small, manageable moments. You don't have to process everything at once. One memory, one feeling, one moment at a time. That's how we do it. That's how we survive it. Number 3, lower the expectations you place on yourself. Stacked grief reduces emotional capacity. And this is not laziness. It is the physics of the soul. Do less, rest more, move slowly. Number 4, let someone else hold a corner of your pain. Stacked grief is too heavy to carry alone. Choose one safe person, at least one. Let them sit with you, not to fix you, but just to be present. Many times we have people to run to, but they want to try to fix us. That doesn't work. We just need to have someone just sit in our presence and be with us. Number 5, tend to your body. You see, your nervous system is carrying everything. So take care of yourself. Eat well, hydrate, walk, breathe, do what you got to do. Small physical acts, they restore emotional stability. It's important. Number 6, create a simple ritual. I talk about this all the time because people think you're talking about, oh, I'm not religious. It's not being religious. It's something you do to minister to your own soul, to help strengthen you. Lighting a candle, a journal entry. Maybe you keep a journal. Or just a weekly pause where you sit outside and listen to the birds and let the sun hit your face. Rituals help the soul organize what feels chaotic. Number 7, seek support when the layers feel immovable. A grief group, a chaplain, a therapist, or a trusted spiritual leader can help you gently untangle what feels completely overwhelming. Number 8, practice compassion for yourself. Stacked grief is not failure. It is evidence that you loved deeply and endured more than most people ever see or will see. You're not breaking apart. You're carrying too much. And carrying too much calls for gentleness, not judgment. Rest, not pressure. Support, not silence. You are allowed to lay the weight down. You are allowed to heal one layer at a time. It cannot be done in a rush. In my next podcast, which will be a part 2, I will give a word about ambiguous grief. Woven through all of this, delayed grief and stacked grief is something many people don't have language for yet. Ambiguous grief, it's different. This is the grief of what changed but did not fully end. Someone's still here, but they're not the same anymore. A life that continues, but not as you imagined it. We will explore this more deeply in part 2 because ambiguous grief touches identity, it touches your faith, and meaning at the deepest level. If there is one thing I want you to take with you today, it is this. Grief today is not weaker, it's heavier. And your soul needs patience instead of pressure, compassion instead of comparison, community instead of silence. You are not grieving wrong. You are grieving in a world that has changed. Thank you for being here with me today. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who may be carrying layered or silent grief. And join me next time as we continue with part 2, Ambiguous Grief, the grief with no closure. Until then, be gentle with your heart. Let your soul breathe. And remember, you're not alone. God bless you.